I am Natasha Bowden. I'm the SHAPE specialist and breastfeeding coordinator for Buncombe County. And then I also support Wake and Orange in breastfeeding also for the SHAPE project. And today we are talking about breastfeeding supports in the classroom. And I'll also turn it over to Jessica, who will be presenting with me.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Natasha. I'm Jessica Bridgman. I work at the Carolina Global Breastfeeding Institute. One of my colleagues is on the call today, Dana Huntley, and we work together to support breastfeeding friendly childcare through the Enriched Carolinas project.
And today we'll just be back and forth. We'll take questions. If you have them, put them in the chat. We'll be monitoring that. And we will have an opportunity for breakout sessions. So, all right, for our agenda, we're going to go over our video. We like to show this one at the beginning because it kind of showcases where we're coming from and what we'd really like to see. We're going to go over normalizing. So Jessica and I will talk about some of the assessment tools that you can use and why. We'll talk about classroom examples, and then we'll be talking in our groups.
Is there a place where everyone, regardless of race, economic background, or gender, grows up with the opportunity for good health, a good education, and a good job? This place is not in our heads, but in our hands. It starts with a mother and a baby. Actually, it can start with all of us. It can start with you. When you support a woman's health long before she chooses to have a baby, and when she gets pregnant, you help her receive excellent prenatal care close to her home, where you explain why breastfeeding matters in a manner and language she understands. Before she gives birth, in a baby-friendly hospital you helped establish, where you help her breastfeed her baby right away, allowing her to bond with her baby, who breastfeeds well, and you're always there to help. When this mom and baby go home, you help them some more, and her friends and family do too. And she breastfeeds her baby for at least 6 months, and gets to stay home and care for her baby, and her partner gets time too, because they have paid family leave, thanks to your efforts that made it the law. And when she returns to work, her boss encourages her to take breaks, to pump in a clean space required by the law you helped pass. And there's childcare right there, where people understand why breastfeeding matters, because you led the way. On the weekends, her family shops at a local green market you helped set up, where they buy good food that is local, healthy, and affordable, that helps her child run, play, learn, and grow up in a safe community with clean air and good water, until one day, many years from now, she gets her own job with good parental leave and has her own child and breastfeeds her. It takes every one of us to create a culture where breastfeeding is the norm and help a community become healthy right from the start. Beginning with one mother and one baby, we can help achieve health equity everywhere. Each and every one of us can make it possible.
And that's really why we like to show that video, because it really wraps up what we are really trying to do, one little step at a time.
So here is just a summary of what we're aiming to do through normalizing breastfeeding and childcare programs. So it's important for families to know, all families to know the different types of things that any program, a childcare center or family childcare home is doing around supporting breastfeeding throughout the program in different classrooms. Yes, it will look very different from program to program, but there are different things that different types of programs based on your size or if you're a family childcare home that you can do to support normalizing breastfeeding throughout the childcare program. So we'll be talking about that today. A few things include having posters, having a written policy. So one of our previous learning bursts, we talked about the importance of developing a policy. So you can go back and watch that. And we can also answer questions around that today in our breakouts. Practices in the classroom, making sure that you're sharing verbally and non-verbally, that all feeding styles are welcome throughout the program, especially new families that are touring the programs, and as well as keeping that ongoing with families that are already enrolled. Natasha, do you have anything to add?
No, I really think that mostly it's about, when we're talking about it in a childcare program, really having a welcoming feel for all feeding styles, and that parents can see that people, caregivers can see that it feels that way. So what we're going to be talking about today is how to do that in your classroom. And the one we did last month was on the whole entire center. So we have a recording of that one too. And so this one is specific to classrooms, and it's really about making everybody feel like this is the normal way we feed babies.
So both the 10 steps to breastfeeding friendly childcare and the self-assessment, this is the Carolina Global Breastfeeding self-assessment, are key to normalizing breastfeeding. So completing a self-assessment does allow you to better understand what current strengths and areas for improvement do exist throughout your program. So in other words, completing the self-assessment helps you to get organized, to build an action plan, and to think through really what the best approach to creating a roadmap for implementing change would be for your program. So know that it's okay to not work on everything at one time. We definitely encourage you to break things down to bite-sized pieces, and that varies from program to program, what that looks like.
And if you'll use the 10 steps as a guide and then assess your center, you can, kind of figure out where you are and where you're not. And the Global Breastfeeding Institute has their own assessment that's very breastfeeding specific, breastfeeding designation specific. So there's another tool that a lot of places use, and that's the Go Knapsack. They have one as well. And you can use this one if that's what you're already using. They both have their pluses and minuses. The most important thing is just remembering that you can make your action plan based on your assessment. If you assess where you're at, they're just pretty helpful. Like this one, it's like, how often are your teachers promoting breastfeeding, and how do you do that? Are you talking with your parents? Do you have brochures and posters up in your room? Is there enough refrigerator and freezer space available? It just kind of walks you through some of the tips and tools that can create the spaces that you want to create. Also, this one that I like at the very first of it, it talks about what is licensing. These are the first piece of this knapsack is license based, that you're required in North Carolina to have a space, but it doesn't have to be private. Okay.
And one thing I wanted to add about the self-assessment too is the importance of going back to reassess. So once you make changes over time, make sure that you're going back and reassessing, seeking feedback, getting that feedback from not only the program staff, but also families, and just ensuring that you're maintaining those changes that you've made.
All right, one of the most important pieces of normalizing breastfeeding in the classroom is really getting the kids involved. What does your room look like? Do you have visual supports and posters, pictures, things like this up? I'll let Jessica talk about CBGI's posters, because these are the gorgeous new ones.
Thanks, Natasha. So we do have several new ones that we have posted on the website, and we do have a document that has all of them together, so you can kind of look and see which ones you'd like to download. On the right here is one that we have, and I can put that link into the chat so you can go and check out those posters.
And when you download them, you can have them sent to a printer, or you can print them off your color printer, and they do really well. You can create your own. So Werner Child Care Center, that has one on this side, they created their own. I love this one. They took pictures from Napa, I think it's in NPA, and it's really great. They've added all these different styles of feeding and that are welcome. And then they also added in pictures in their infant toddler room and in their breastfeeding room of their own moms that are breastfeeding, including their staff members. So they made it really personal. So there's multiple ways that you can support your with posters and pictures. So the next piece we'll really talk about is your breastfeeding space. Now we're talking about the classroom space. We really also will have another training maybe in July. I'll look at the calendar at the very end that we'll be talking about specifically how to set up your breastfeeding private space for pumping for employees and your moms. But this one is all about what's in your infant toddler room. So there's many ways to do that. Some infant toddler rooms are really challenging to add a space in, but like this one, just as a chair and a little table. And here we're adding in resources, and there's lots of great resources, but it just helps her to feel supported, really to see that there is support out there. You know, if your infant toddler teacher doesn't know the resources, that's fine. She may have a list of resources, but CBGI has great materials that support mom in that and those options. So when you're setting up in the classroom, like see this one on this side really has a chair, and it doesn't have to be private, but it can have something that can go around it if you want. And I'll show you the next one. Anything to add here, Jessica? Okay, so this one is KinderCare and Carry. So one of the things I like about this is in the infant toddler room. And what is really cool about it is that it is open. It's the same classroom, everything's normal. And then a mom comes in and she wants some privacy, and she can pull these curtains. It is a little bit of a hospital feel, but the colors and the fabric, soft fabric really helps it to feel a little bit more personal. So you can do different types of fabrics, gauzy things, just things that feel comfortable to give it less of a hospital feel. But this is such a great idea to be able to close it off. And at the bottom, it would only be closed when a mom is in there, so you don't have issues with being able to see the children. So another place not to forget is your outside infant feeding nook. So this is part of your classroom. And you can set this up in a million different ways, but I've gotten some feedback from our breastfeeding moms that really the most important piece is trying to locate the area in the shade without a lot of flowering plants, so that there's not so many bees and other insects flying around the baby. I wasn't, really even thinking about that, but trying to do comfortable seating, adding a table and a resting spot for bottles, arms, and then label the area so caregivers know they're welcome to use it. A lot of times moms don't know they can use it, but I would make it very comfortable for your teachers as an infant feeding nook, because they will use it and feel super, super supported with it. We have lots of those around the area, and they're just highly utilized in the infant space. And you can do a rocker. You can do this one. This is just a basic bench with something comfortable, pillows. There's many options, and Adirondack chair that's like a bigger chair, just some other options.
So ensuring that not only families and your program staff know what's available, but ensuring that they're welcome to use any space. So whatever is most comfortable for them to use. So sometimes it might be easy to perhaps directly or indirectly encourage them to use one or the other. So just being mindful about that and just letting them know what's available.
And doing that during orientation, but also reorientation. You may have added these spaces on, and then a mom who has a child in the 4-year-old classroom may not have breastfed and may not know these resources exist. So keeping that potential open is very important. Also for your new hires, it is really nice for your employees to know this is a benefit. It helps them stay longer when they feel nourished and they feel connected to their space. And this being an option for them to utilize too really makes it kind of special. So one of the things that we've got plenty of, and trying to find them is fairly easy. I did not put CBGIs here because there's so many beautiful materials, and Jessica's put links into the chat, and I will have links for you. I think they're also sent out with your emails. Hopefully, if not, let us know. CBGI has beautiful materials that are meant for families and also employers. Here we've got some ideas. These are just ideas that you can throw out there. How to ace pumping at work, milk expression. This is all through the WIC database. You can print these things off, or you can add links in that moms can access. So being able to get resources that they can have that will help them maintain milk supply.
Yeah, I think the most important thing here is just knowing that there are a lot of options. There's no right way to support and promote encouraging breastfeeding, meaning there are a lot of resources out there. So knowing that there are a lot of resources and just figuring out which ones fit best for your program.
Yes, and that's so important. Local resources are wonderful, because if you can find some that'll promote your local WIC, your local SNAP, your local options for pumps, because WIC will offer pumps, but not necessarily for people that are over income. So where else can they find pumps? And just things that really, your local La Leche, your local breastfeeding consultants, just things that can support your mom on a local level is wonderful too. So another place to really start looking at is your toys and materials. Now, it's really nice to have these in dramatic play. The kids, of course, love their babies. And so they can have little animals that have, they'll latch on this way. You have little babies that they can wrap up in blankets. Some centers, and where they have like dramatic play where they're feeding the babies. Some centers do bottles just because they're also seeing them. You're going to give breast milk and formula in a bottle. So they do that, but it's very highly encouraged to teach that this is a normal way to do it. So it's not just bottles that babies are seeing. And the next one that we're going to be doing too is going to be on toys, materials, and books. We're going to add in how to do the curriculum piece. So into much more detail about this one. Another thing that you can think about is your books for your classroom. And in our next training, we'll be having a lot more options for you. But I like this picture because it has one of my favorites. We like to nurse, and we like to nurse too. And then here's one I've not read. I don't know if anyone else has, The Mystery of the Breast. But Mama's Milk is a really good one also. And, just having these little guys. And these little guys Velcro on. So they're really cute. And you can use them, I'm not sure about with, COVID and all the toys that you can't use right now, but once you can get your soft stuff back, these are a great option. Now, setting up milk storage for success. So one of the pieces of your classroom that you'll want to think about is milk storage. Where are you going to put the milk? How are you going to label it? What are you going to put up on your walls so that your teachers are comfortable? So CBGI has these great materials that you can set your moms up for success, but they also have a poster that's how do you store milk? And that's the one I was trying to find to put in here, but I couldn't find the that particular handout. And it's really nice to have up on your milk container, whatever that is, refrigerator. On this one, I really recommend having them to the moms to bring in little cooler bags with lots of smaller bottles of milk versus a few big ones, because licensing rules state that you can send milk home with the mom as long as it's not been drank from. So if you have a little bottle and it's not been drunk or had anything taken from it, you can send it back home. But if it's been some of it has been taken out of it, and then like maybe the baby drunk an ounce, as far as I know, licensing states you have to throw that out. So it's better to do smaller amounts. And then if you can do color-coded labels that adhere to the bottles and the coolers, they have the child's name, date, and contents on it, it really will prevent confusion of giving the wrong bottle to the wrong baby. Because I know a lot of teachers are real worried about that. This really takes a lot of that worry out.
The rule I know about if there was a change in not allowing them to send home a bottle that had been some human milk had been consumed from it. Mm-hmm. So definitely, yeah, just check with your consultant on that, and we can follow up about that. I know it was up to the family's choice whether or not they would like to have the milk to be sent home had been consumed, or if it was still if that bottle had not been fed yet.
Yeah.
And I just put a link in the chat to the childcare rules, just so people have exactly what it says about accommodating for breastfeeding families.
Thank you.
Hey, Natasha, I'm just curious. It says have a bottle warmer or crock pot labeled for breast milk bottles only. Why is that? Why can it not be shared?
It's not, it doesn't have to be, but you know, if the bottle leaks, but also just so that they can, the teachers are not as likely to get it confused with a formula bottle, because
Okay.
you know, that seems to be more of a concern than,
Okay.
you know, if they got soy milk versus, you know, another kind of milk. But if you get mom's milk confused, it becomes quite the situation. So this one kind of prevents that potential.
Okay. Got it. Thanks.
Mhm. Another thing to do is to create a plan with mom if breast milk should run out before the last feeding. One of the most important things that seem to not be delivered to moms is that breast milk changes in relationship to how the baby is growing. So the fat levels will change. But sometimes if mom is super stressed, she breastfed, but didn't necessarily pump enough sometimes, or she pumped this milk and put it in the freezer from months ago, you know, there may be some kind of changes in the fat levels. And so when the baby's going through a growth spurt, they may drink all the milk. So you definitely want to have a plan with the mom to have an option if the milk should run out. And that may be freezer milk. Some centers do not allow freezing, but licensing does. So if you do allow that, you can have the moms bring frozen milk and have it labeled and put in the freezer. You want to create a policy around provision and storage of fresh and frozen breast milk, because some moms may think that is an option and it may not be.
Natasha, we got a comment from Jennifer that she thinks that you're not allowed to have crock pots anymore
Okay.
in the classroom. I don't know about that myself, but it does sound like something licensing wouldn't like to me.
Well, they have the bottle warmers as long as they were up a certain level, but that's something we'll need to look at as well. And these are things that, you know, licensing changes quite frequently. So if I don't go back and do the due diligence of checking these right off the bat. So yeah, don't let us give you the bad information. Check with your licensing consultant. But there is bottle warmers that are closed and lockable. And crock pots too. So that may not be a potential, but it might be a potential to have in your kitchen. You'll have to have a way to warm your bottles up. So thank you.
Yeah, Lynn says no crock pots in the classroom.
Or bottle warmers. Okay. So that may be something that may have to be for your kitchen instead, or your teacher workroom. But also create a plan on how you're going to warm those bottles up.
Angela wants to say something.
Hey, how you doing, everyone?
Hey,
Also, I do have just a little bit more information, Natasha, around the milk, because I think somebody had a question around, did you have to throw it out? And so unfortunately, sanitation has made it a little bit difficult, but you don't have to throw it out. But if you have taken it out of the fridge to offer to baby, it can't go back in the fridge. So for instance, if it has to be stored in their cubby or somewhere else out of reach, right, in order to send it home.
Thank you.
I guess that's more like if, you know, it's closer to the end of the day. So it sounds like timing would be everything, because for the most part, once you've taken it out of the refrigerator, you know what I'm saying, then we have a certain amount of hours. You breastfeeding experts will know better than me how many hours that is, but sanitation has made it difficult. But if you take it out of the fridge, you do not have to throw the unused portion away. It can be stored in the cubby to go back home, but you cannot place it back in the refrigerator if you took it out of the fridge. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so that makes really good. Thank you very much, Angela.
No, actually, it doesn't make sense, but I understand what you're saying.
Right.
Now, you can put it into the labeled cooler, like a little bag, the little bottle cooler that the mom is bringing with, or parent caregiver is bringing with specific labeled bottles. So this is Johnny's bag of breast milk, and you can put it back into that as long as it's labeled. But you can't go back into the refrigerator, right?
Right.
Okay, well, see, this is why it's so nice to have so many people at the table, because these things change quite frequently. We were just on a call yesterday with DCDE, who just said that they've changed all kinds of things, new rules and regs, and that the new things are up on their website. So we'll probably all need to go update ourselves when we're putting this out and creating your rooms. So thank you, everyone. All right. Any questions, comments? Any more questions or comments? You want to unmute yourself and ask any questions?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
What she just said that once you take the container out of the refrigerator, I have a parent that brings a big container of breast milk, so we pour it out into the bottle. So you saying I can't put that container back in the refrigerator?
No, it's not that. It's if it's in like the bottle. So if the baby, if you pour 2 ounces in the bottle and the baby only eats 1 ounce, it's that extra ounce that can't be put back in the refrigerator. I remember that rule now, Angela. We'd had long conversations about that with licensing. I mean, environmental health. Yeah, they don't want, so like once the baby's mouth saliva has gotten into that bottle and on that bottle, then it sets up bacteria, and environmental health won't see, like the rule for formula is you have to throw it away.
Yeah.
And they used to make them throw away the breast milk. Also, because sometimes mom would send a 6 ounce or 8 ounce bottle and then baby only eats 2 ounces every 2 hours. And yeah, so that's why. So if the baby, so when you're pouring that out of that big container, just pour out what that baby's normally eating, like 1 or 2 ounces, and then you can add more if the baby's hungry. Does that make sense?
Yes, I thought you were saying the big container couldn't go back either.
Oh no, yes, the big container can, because it's not been contaminated with the baby's saliva.
Okay.
Yeah, that actually works pretty well. The only challenge with that is just making sure it's very well labeled. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, we're going to go into our breakout group and take a few minutes for each of us to go in and talk about what might work in your program. If you're already doing these things, talking about your policy and some things that you can do after this.
Thing that I thought was helpful, we talked about in the breakout I was in, was around being sure to think through how to support program staff, so who are also in the classroom as well, and thinking through what the program staff policy looks like. So that might also be on others' radars, but just wanted to share that. That was a really great dialogue that we had.
And one of the things that we talked about that was really great dialogue was the option of starting with, in the 3 to 5s classroom, especially starting with books first, then adding in slow steps, adding in the toys into dramatic play, then adding in curriculum pieces and lesson plans, because as the kids start playing with it, and also sending a letter to your parents to let them know that you are working on breastfeeding in the classroom and also breastfeeding in your center. And we'll talk about that more in our next training. To this, thank you to all of our partners: Carolina Global Breastfeeding Institute, us, Partnership for Children, Orange, Wake, NCPC, Breastfeed Durham, and Orange.